guys, I'm Suqura Shannon, a local artist here in Houston. Now, as a Black creative, I thought it was very necessary to use my platform to speak out about social injustice in light of everything that's been going on right now. I do appreciate our mental jury for taking the time to stand in solidarity and support the Black community here in Houston. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Suqura the Artist. You can also follow me on Facebook under Suqura Shannon Fine Art, and you can visit my website, suqurashannon.com. Thank you all for your support. Art, it's like breathing to me. It's always been a big part of my life. I've been drawing ever since I was a child, but when I got a little bit older, I became a part of something bigger than myself, and I've learned firsthand how art can be used to connect with others. I never went to an art school though. I actually got my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I worked in the cosmetics industry for over 10 years. But with, having the business background and, working in makeup where you learn color theory, there's a lot of parallels with that in art. And so it kind of made me pretty well rounded. I was like obsessed with art. I'd watch YouTube videos and practice on how I could get better, and I would do little commissions here and there and donate pieces to nonprofit organizations, and just kept practicing really until I found my style, and I realized I love painting portraits. And fast forward, in 2016 I actually moved from my hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm originally from, to Houston. And I honestly moved because I just needed a change of scenery, and I looked to Houston as like this art mecca, this beacon of opportunity, from a much smaller, place where I came from. And, the road wasn't easy, but I did, develop having, better skills and, getting a lot of support. And eventually I decided to start my own art business, Suqura Shannon Fine Art, in 2019, August of last year. So that's my story. One thing that I'm most passionate about is connecting with others and making an impact in some way, big or small, and I think that's why I was just naturally drawn to painting portraits. Capturing the essence of a person it's personal, it's intimate, and even when I do commissions, for people, like, I learned so much about that person's story, and they tell me all the time, oh my gosh, like, you captured him so well, or, oh my gosh, like his eyes, or, her smile, and it starts to bring back, memories and things like that. I mean, art in any form can have an emotional effect on people. It can lift their spirits, or it can light a fire under them. And I have seen firsthand, how my art does resonate with a lot of people, and that's ultimately what drives me and keeps me going. No two paintings are ever alike, and I can always learn something from the experience with creating that painting, and I learn something new, from every person. So I first discovered that I could actually paint when I was 16. This was quite a pivotal moment for me. I was actually a part of the Arts and Medicine volunteer program at Shands Hospital in my hometown. And this particular year, they wanted to draw attention to fire safety. So it was our assignment to paint a mural of a firehouse and 2 Dalmatians. And that was my first time ever painting a mural. And it was a huge, eye-opening experience for me, because it just showed me how you can use art to not only, send a message, but to connect with and impact, so many people. My partner and I, while we were painting, I think it took us about 4 days to finish it. And every day, there would be like groups of people, like nurses, visitors, or some patients would kind of peek out, kind of see what's going on, and they would connect with us. They would talk with us and watch us paint. And it was awesome, and it showed me, how you can just kind of be a light, for some people. Like for the doctors, a lot of times it's stressful, it's chaotic, or sometimes sad. I mean, think about what's happened with, the COVID-19 outbreak, and, what the doctors have been saying, about how this is really affecting them and taking a toll on them, even as far as their mental health, or, putting their own lives at risk. It was huge, because that could have been, them watching us paint for that few minutes could have been the only spark, for their entire day. And even for some of the patients, the only company some of them may have gotten was, looking at us painting. We pass by, we say hello, and so that is what really was the catalyst, for me to keep creating and want to perfect that craft. Once I realized this is something I'm actually, kind of good at, and I can start to think about what more can I do with it. So I can only really speak for myself on this. I feel like everyone has had a different, background, or as far as how they were raised. And I can say, I honestly wouldn't be the Black woman that I am today if it weren't for the women in my life who raised me. I grew up with my mom and both my grandmothers. And, my mom, let me tell you, she ran a tight ship, like she didn't play any games. You hear me? And I appreciate her for that, because that taught me structure. And then on the other hand, my grandmother, she taught me, so much about educating yourself and knowing your Black history. In fact, she was actually a librarian for 30 years. And going to Granny's house was like going to an actual library. She had so many books and documentaries and tapes, and she would make sure, that I knew, where we came from, and I knew our story. And she would quiz me too. And every week, that I would come to Granny's house, I would have an assigned book to read. She gave me a summer reading list, and we always did these fun arts and crafts together, and it was a great time. But what my grandmother also instilled in me was compassion and giving back and contributing to your own, community. Even in her retirement, she dedicated her time to tutor children who had sickle cell disease at Shands Hospital Tutorial Center. And she would bring me along with her, to help tutor and help set things up and things like that. But what that taught me, was how to, really make an impact in a big way, right where you live. And just to tell you a little bit about sickle cell, I'm not going to get too far off topic, but this is a genetic blood disorder that affects Blacks almost exclusively, and a lot of children can sometimes, have strokes, which affects their learning abilities and things like that. So that was huge for me to be a part of that. I think I ended up, volunteering alongside her and put in over 600 volunteer hours from my freshman year of high school up until graduation. And so to kind of circle back to answering that question, I feel like what it means to be a Black woman today is to, really be an active part of your community and establishing that unity amongst each other, supporting each other's businesses if you have the means to, and even if you don't, sharing resources, sharing, your friends, social media or website, even things like that can just go a really long way. And I think also too, just calling and checking in on each other. My grandma, even once I went on to college, she would kind of pull up on me sometimes, and come by the house, and she's like, hey, I just had to come look at you. I just had to come check on you, just see how you're doing, and we can all do that. Even for my non-Black friends, they always check in on me, and I really appreciate that. So that's what I think. So I did go out and protest the other day for actually the first time. And I mean, seriously, just to be amongst those 60,000 people, that marched with the George Floyd family, and took a stand, it really motivated me in a way that just had me thinking about, I stayed up thinking, like, what more can I do, to affect change and take action long after this. So I did decide to use my social media platform and use my art to spread awareness about the Black Lives Matter movement. I did do a piece, a portrait actually, of George Floyd that I hope to give to the Floyd family, just to stand in solidarity and support of them. And I've been doing, research to see what other initiatives are out there that I can support. I've donated to the change.org petition for George Floyd, as well as the Black Lives Matter Global Network, just to name a couple. So I am, making active decisions to take action, long after the protests. As long as I can just make an impact in some way, big or small, then that's what I'm going to do. So I believe that we have to be the change that we want to see. I know that sounds like a cliche. I know you're like, okay, heard that before. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, whatever. But what that looks like is genuinely putting in the work. We have to take action. I'm down for the protest. I'm down for the solidarity, and the unity and all of that. But what happens when the dust settles and, the glass is repaired and the boards are taken down? What are we ultimately really doing to affect change? And some things that we can do, are support Black businesses, which means, even if you don't have the means to necessarily do so, sharing, their social media platforms, sharing their websites, getting the word out about resources and initiatives, that are trying to affect change for the Black Lives Matter movement. That's just, some actions that we can take to really make those steps in the right direction. I think it's also very important, right now for, not to really get off topic, but for the Black LGBTQ community as well. Many people are ostracized from their families. They're discriminated against in the workplace. I've seen it happen with some of my friends, and it's hurtful, it's terrible. But we've seen the leaps and bounds and strides that they've been able to make, by choosing their families, coming together, supporting one another, but also not forgetting to register to vote, making, their opinions known at the polls where it really counts. This is how we can really make a difference, on a community level, and as well as on a state and even a national level. So, I really think that's what needs to happen. And I'll say this too, discrimination and racism of any kind is not inherent. We are not born that way. It's taught. So yeah, we, as someone who doesn't always necessarily speak publicly about these kinds of things, in political matters, I felt compelled to speak up and, say something. It's time to have those uncomfortable and real conversations about injustice and about inequality.